Hello, beautiful Leos. Leos are interesting, because you're the only sign that has the sun as your ruling planet. And so, what is the sun? Well, it's a star. And therefore, so are you in a very real way. And that is that you tend to be very vibrant and very warm. It's that fiery energy. So when a fiery energy is in balance, in a state of balance, it's that energy that radiates outward, that creates connections, that creates cooperation, that's a great leader, but somebody who leads with empowering people and supporting them in their growth rather than dictating and dominating. And and it's it's really something that can offer just great heartfelt actions, creativity as well, but really that sense of being able to help and do and wanting to do well for people. And often in bigger ways, because the fiery energy, when it's in a balanced state, it really does radiate out in a 360-degree spiral pattern. Now, the thing about this, Leo, is that you do have a very strongly developed ego. And of course, that can be a really wonderful thing, because when you want to be a leader, when you are a leader, when you want to be taking charge and making things happen, you need to have a strong sense of who you are, what your identity is, where your boundaries are. And in order to be able to do it in a positive way, using that energy in all the ways I just described as a balanced fire, you need to be able to be strong and confident in yourself. But the thing about that is, if you're only strong and confident in your ego structure, in your personality, then anything that challenges that can really bring up the lion, the fight, and it can prevent you from being able to take a moment and question what your role might have been in that. And it can cause you sometimes to throw the baby out with the bathwater out of a sense of a hurt ego. Now, this isn't unique to you alone, but because you're so strongly developed in your sense of your ego, your personality, if you have not, this is careful, I want to be careful, because it could sound critical and it's not. Everybody's on a spiritual path. Everybody is, whether they know it or not. But those of you who are on a spiritual path are developing a sense of yourself beyond your ego, beyond your personality. That's where you have seen a lot of your value, and where Leo tends to see a lot of their value is in the power of their personality. When that gets challenged in some way, when their generosity is refused for some reason, when they are being perceived as being pushy rather than supportive, instructive rather than suggestive, these different things, if you get called out with that, that can be really hurtful to you, because you don't mean it in a bad way. But because there is a connection to your identity there, if you don't also have a strongly developed sense of your higher self, of that inner part of you that is bigger than your ego, that your ego is a part of, that spiritual core of you, that can be enough to kind of take you down and put up a wall instead of putting up a boundary. A boundary is negotiable. So can you look at something and say, what was my role in that? Or do you go to a cognitive distortion? They disrespected me because they crossed a picket line. They can no longer be my friend. They disrespected me because I didn't. Well, no, maybe they were respecting or honoring something in themselves, and it had nothing to do with you. It had nothing to do with their affection for you or their respect of you, but it had something to do with them. Okay? But are you willing to give up an entire friendship because your ego got tweaked and you didn't have the ability? And I say ability because sometimes it does feel like an ability. You didn't have the ability to stop and slow down and question it. Well, that can certainly happen when a lot of really big, heavy emotion gets triggered, for sure. That's why it's so important to stay grounded in a bigger and deeper sense of yourself, something beyond those personality traits that we all admire. Because when those traits get questioned or are not valued in a way that we perceive they should be valued, then that can create an inability to slow down long enough and really look at it and question it and negotiate it in a way where you get to actually feel even better and more powerful. When any of us start letting the triggering of our personality get in the way of being able to negotiate an understanding of what happened in an uncomfortable or painful situation, that's where we truncate our opportunity to grow from that situation. And it doesn't mean that you won't grow later from it. But what Spirit is suggesting now is, again, this teddy bear, and I find like it's not in any way, well, no, let me tell you what it is. What it is, is it's really loving. It's this loving sense of support for you to remind you that whatever was going on for you as a child that created any kind of wound around your ego, that made it necessary for you to kind of become stoic or perhaps brittle in your self-image and your self-esteem, like something that you really had to work at having because it wasn't something that was nurtured and grown in you, that can create a kind of restriction in your ability to let down and let that go. And if let that go in order to be able to grow beyond that. And so what I'm feeling like this is really saying to you is, whatever your mind has created for yourself around the value of your ego, the importance of respect and belonging and being in control, many of the things that we would associate with areas where you can get hurt, right? It's asking you, Spirit's asking you is, if you can go back to that little child, if you can go back to that part of you as a kid that was not heard, that was not listened to, that was shamed for things that you did not deserve to be shamed for, where you were not honored, where you were not seen, where you were not encouraged to be outspoken, to be empowered in yourself. If you can stay with that a little bit, use this tenderness, this appreciation and love of that little inner child, you're going to understand where some of your cognitive distortions come from. And the energy you're being asked to lean into is grace. That sense of divine offering, of peace and love that is really there to help you through and guide you with a loving hand through whatever pains, discomforts, traumas you've experienced. Because you have, and gratitude, the gratitude card, again, it's that sense of, if you can open your heart and be grateful, and I find this is super important. This is super important for fixed signs, including Taurus, to remember that we have divine influence over us, through us, in our lives, that we're not the only ones who have to keep things together. We're not the only ones who have to be able to handle situations and be strong. Be strong. It's about really leaning into the grace and the gratitude. It's really about leaning into divine presence and the understanding that there is not just more for us, but that there is more to us. And that by leaning into that which is there for us, we develop more of a relationship to that which is us. That deeper part, okay? Now, what was my role in that? This is coming up, and I'm feeling like, while that is always a really valuable thing, whether it's happening now or whether or not you're reviewing old situations, what I feel is really important is, yeah. Okay. Today is about looking inward. For every situation and interaction you have, ask, what was my role in that? If I allow for the fact that this is a reflection of something about me, what might it be? How could I have acted or spoken differently to have changed the experience? And how could you choose differently next time? What would you repeat and why? And then you're getting the card right on top of that. Why are you saying it? And I feel this is super important because I feel sometimes, Leos, you say things out of a sense of self-protection, but it's not really what your true heart feels because you are heartfelt people. You do genuinely want to give. It doesn't matter whether or not you have wounds that take you out of that and put you into a defensive mode or put you into throwing the baby out with the bathwater mode. That's not essentially who you are. You are big-hearted, you are warm, you are intelligent, you are all of these different things. So the why are you saying that? It's like, do you really feel that? What it's asking you is in those moments when you become overcome by that almost rage and self-protection that causes you to either get really hot or really cold and cut. Why are you saying that? Is it really about protecting yourself? Is it really about self-respect? Or is it about just not being willing to look at some of the underlying qualities in you that maybe are problematic in a way that they could be for anybody? But just that sense of being able to negotiate relationship more honestly, more comfortably. Why are you saying it? What could you say instead? Listen to yourself. Notice how much of what you say is just standard party line. And for standard party line, that could be standard defense mechanism. Or is the expectation of whatever social group you're in. So if you're in a family and you're a mother, are you expected to be this? And therefore you're going to respond in that way. How much of it do you believe and how completely do you believe it? Question. If it's not your belief or profound feeling or a verifiable fact, why are you saying it? And that's where the cognitive distortions come in. If it's not a verifiable fact, well, did somebody really reject you or did somebody just need to take care of themselves in a different way than involved you? Did you ask them or did you just make a decision? Okay? And how could you have reacted differently in that situation? Where's the cognitive distortion? And what are you saying that is a cognitive distortion that is taking you away from a truth? Now, why is this all relevant? This is all relevant, Leo, because you're such a dynamic and powerful energy, and you can create such a fantastic community when you're in a state of balance. Your mind is what is going to allow you to expand what you create and move beyond those things. The mind is not only the tool with which we interpret the world around us. The mind is the great cosmic cookie cutter which manifests our world according to its shape and the ingredients we put into it. When you are operating with cognitive distortions that are leading you, and when you are supporting cognitive distortions with your language, you are creating that through your mind. When you allow yourself to really lean into gratitude and grace, to question the validity of what you're saying and to ask what your role was in it, and what cognitive distortions you're keeping alive around that, that's where you get to be able to reshape your cookie cutter and put a whole new dynamic into your life, which is better for you and it's better for us because we would like to really experience all of that wonderful energy, all of the creativity that comes from that, all of the insights that can come from that powerful, fiery energy that chooses to be introspective, that chooses to lean into grace and gratitude instead of blame or defensiveness or hurt. Okay? Leos, I hope you take this with the great love that it's intended. It is really, truly respectful of the great energy that you have. And I feel Spirit is saying, it's really time, that teddy bear, it's time to experience the love and the comfort for all the things that you didn't feel loved for or all the times you weren't comforted, because that's going to help you balance out into much more of the kind of energy you actually in your heart support, which is compassion, love, community, creativity. Okay? Take care, my dear Leos.